All the horrors of a Vikings-Bears game, but this time on primetime Monday Night Football. Let's get into it. It's Crossover Thursday.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's going on, Vikings fans, Bears fans? It's Thursday. You know what that means. I am Luke Braun here with Lauren Cox, just like we were just 3 weeks ago. We just talked, Lauren. So welcome into... And it was what?
And yet so much has changed in just those 3 weeks.
And yet so much has changed. So welcome into Crossover Thursday, brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. On this Crossover Thursday, we got some catching up to do. Things have changed a little bit in Chicago. I think we got to talk a little bit about some of the things that went down in that game in Soldier Field, how maybe things might be different. And the Vikings are favored by a touchdown right now, so what needs to happen for there to be an upset? But Lauren, let's just get to the headlines right now. How you doing?
Not well. Probably, but you know, this whole thing has just been, like you fire your head coach and you're thinking, okay, maybe it's not going to fix everything, but you can at least get that one game bump of like, hey, everyone rallies around the new coach and hey,
you would think,
and then you peter back out. But the exact opposite seemed to happen for the Bears. And I don't necessarily think that's a reflection of like, oh, does that mean they shouldn't have fired Matt Eberflus? No, I just think it's a reflection of how many more problems there are in this team than just what the head coach was, which I agree was part of the problem and needed to be changed. But they just didn't have that real spark of energy against the 49ers, and you wonder if they're going to be able to find it again over the final 5 weeks.
It was funny. So we have a show called the Minnesota Football Party here at Locked On with Arif, who you know, and Sam Ekstrom and Luke Inman. And we have a betting contest where we were all fighting over who got to take the Bears for the interim coach bump. Like 3 of us wanted it, and it ended up losing. So come on. But I didn't get it, so I'm thankful for that. So I guess I'm trying to parse this out in just the timeline, right? So Shane Waldron fired, good. That worked. Thomas Brown came in better. Caleb's doing better. That seems to work. So promoting him to OC works, and then promoting him to head coach just does not work. And it's only been one game, but what was there an answer here to reorganizing the staff? I mean, I know how you felt about Matt Eberflus and how he had to go. Was there maybe a different answer that we could be looking for, or something that they could still find in the way that they organize everyone's responsibilities that make the Bears more formidable and play up to their talent level?
Yeah, I think there's room for some of that, and some of it might just be unavoidable here. I think there's a lot of questions about defensive coordinator Eric Washington taking over as the play caller, where maybe that's one thing Matt Eberflus was still doing pretty well, was mixing up coverages and fronts and just how they were going to attack opposing offenses. And against the 49ers, it felt very vanilla, very much rush 4, drop back into cover 3 and hope that your talent wins out. And against offensive minds like Kyle Shanahan last week and now Kevin O'Connell this week, that just isn't going to cut it. And it was the worst defensive performance we've seen. So I don't know that they're going to fire the defensive coordinator and make a change there and fix that problem all of a sudden. But on offense, I think there's still room for Thomas Brown to be figuring out, okay, I'm interim head coach now. I have to delegate more to a new offensive coordinator, Chris Beatty, they promoted from wide receivers coach, and figure out that mixture of how hands-on he can be versus can't be, and what maybe he needs to exert more influence on, and what he maybe was too hands-off of in his first game running the ship.
Now, Chris Beatty is from Pitt originally, right? Because he coached Jordan Addison. He's Jordan Addison's ride or die, I think. I didn't realize that connection was around.
I know he was the the Chargers wide receivers coach the last few seasons. He was back at Pitt in 2019 and 2020.
Yeah, so that was when Jordan Addison was he recruited Jordan Addison. That's what it was. And I digress. Anyways, so here's the hard question, okay? And I'm a known Bears hater, so I'm going to ask this. I'm going to make all your listeners mad, and I'm okay with that. Is there quit in this team? Because it feels a little bit like they're on a 5-game losing streak. You got 4 left to go, functionally eliminated from the playoffs. The ESPN tweet is coming. Is this a team that's going to fight just for the sake of fighting? Or are we going to just start getting them kind of no-showing and just waiting for all this to be over so that they can all hit free agency and go to a team they respect?
Well, first of all, let me correct you. It's a 7-game losing streak. Please give us proper credit.
Okay, 7. Okay, sorry.
The Bears were 4-2, and now they're 4-9. Like that's the kind of flip that we've had around here.
Yeah.
I would say it looked like there was some quit in some individual players and not as much quit in some other players. And so,
are we naming names here? Let's get toxic.
I mean, you have 2 linebackers that you really like in Chicago, and it sure looked like one of them was playing hard and the other one wasn't. Both are TE.
That's not naming names, Lauren.
Tremaine Edmonds didn't look.
I'm trying. I will bring out the worst in you.
And maybe Tyreek Stevenson at time. There's different guys, a couple guys on defensive line, maybe here and there. Like there's guys where it's just like, are they giving 100% effort out there, or maybe they're hurt a little bit more than we know. I don't know. So I think some guys were holding on to it and some guys weren't. But I wonder if playing the Vikings can be a difference here. Like they were locked in for Packers, Vikings, Lions the last 3 games before Eberflus was fired. They get up for division games on the road at the 49ers, across country. Maybe there's just a little bit of that, like, well, okay, what are we really playing for here? It doesn't really matter. But the Vikings could be that game they get up for. They say, okay, this is a good team. We want to play a little spoiler.
Monday Night Football.
So that's what I'm kind of looking forward to seeing here. I don't know if they quit against the Vikings, then they're quitting for the whole year. But if they can still get up for the Vikings, then they'll get up for the rest of their division games.
Okay, let me ask a more sensible, like a more football-y question, because one of the most interesting things about the last game was what happened with Justin Jefferson. And the narrative is, they shut down Justin Jefferson, but like 3 other players went over 100, so was it worth it? Blah, blah, blah. The next 2 teams did not do what the Bears did. So apparently those teams have watched that tape and went, this is not a plan we really want. But we'll see what the Bears do. But it was so interesting that they essentially locked off Jalen Johnson. So they played like cover 3, locking off one of the sides. And essentially it's cover 3, but one of the sides just turns into one and it is man coverage. And what that means is if, Jalen Johnson is supposed to be your flat player in cover 3, but he's in man coverage against Justin Jefferson, who runs inside, now there's no flat player. And that's what happened on the TJ Hawkinson catch, that big deep over, which came at the end of regulation that set up the field goal that made it an 11-point game. And then he needed the onside kick and all that. And that kind of thing started happening late in that game. So my question is, do you think that Eric Washington, defensive coordinator, will continue doing that? Or will he look at that and say, man, that was a dumb Matt Eberflus idea. I'm going to do something else.
It's hard to have a lot of faith in him at this point with such a small sample size, I should say, but coming up with something totally new and innovative. I think he's still sort of getting his feet underneath him as a play caller. It's something he did very, very briefly long ago when he was the Carolina Panthers defensive coordinator under Ron Rivera, but it's been like a decade or so since he's been a play caller. So I'm not necessarily expecting him to come out and try and reinvent the wheel a little bit here in terms of like, here's a new way we can attack the Vikings and try and shut down Justin Jefferson, because I do think they look at it and say, man, they got absolutely gashed by Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson. So what did you really accomplish there, especially when you had a couple pass interference penalties that Justin Jefferson drew, and that's 30 plus yards added there. So like, I don't know that it worked.
Difference between a 70-yard game and a 20-yard game. Yeah.
So I would think that, that they may just try and keep it a little bit more simple and try and just trust that players can make plays and will be a little bit more motivated and fired up to get up for this divisional game. But I'm not expecting some brand new idea of like, here's how we can actually switch things up. I think if anything, they'll just simplify it a little bit more and say, hey, maybe we were overcomplicating it against the Vikings the first time, and let's just get back to basics and let guys try and think a little less while they're playing.
Yeah, not counting last week, the Bears are tied for the 3rd most cover 3 in the league. No, I apologize. They're 2nd most, behind just the Buccaneers. So they are definitely a cover 3 team, and the Vikings have all their cover 3 beaters. We'll have to see exactly who can execute on those assignments. That's a pretty familiar matchup in this league, but we'll get into more about what's going on in Minnesota, as well as maybe the path for something weird to happen coming up next. This episode of the Locked On Crossover is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book, and that's because right now, if you're new, you can get $5. You can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So you can put $5 on anything. It can be on some completely foregone conclusion. An alt line for the Bears to get 3 points that's at -3,000. Put $5 on that, you get 30 to 1 odds on 150 in bonus bets. So go get Go take advantage of that. And also, the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL. You can view live play-by-play, live stats, all the information you need to make your decision right in the middle of a game. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel. You can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Once again, that is FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. This episode is also brought to you by Game Time, the best place to find last-minute tickets. If you are trying to get to this Monday Night Football game, maybe this is, you want to see the winter whiteout uniforms the Vikings are going to wear. You want to get in on Monday night. You finally got off work, but you need your tickets. Go check it out at Game Time. Game Time is all about being upfront. So you can toggle on all-in pricing. Click that switch and you will see what you pay at checkout, including all the service and all the taxes, everything. No hidden fees, no surprises at checkout. And they have their lowest price guarantee. So if you go somewhere else, you find the same section and row for cheaper, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference, and their purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. I had an experience when I was in Jacksonville with Game Time. There was an issue. Game Time was all over it. Before the event even ended, I had refund. The tickets were all set up, and they got me set up with other tickets so I could still get into it was beautiful. So can't say enough about it. Once again, go to the Game Time app, create an account, and you can use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So, Lauren, coming off of the week, 12 game against the Vikings, where this almost miraculous comeback happens, probably the wildest game the Vikings have had this year, and feeling like, gosh, you were just right there, huh? How do you feel about this matchup? I mean, it's in Minnesota this time. It's prime time. That always makes things a little different, and things in Chicago are a lot different than they were 3 weeks ago. But with all three divisional opponents as far behind as the Bears are, they were right there with them at the end in all of those games. So how do you feel?
Yeah, it created such a sense of confidence going into last week's San Francisco 49ers game that that's why people were commonly picking them to pull off the upset there and take the head coach bump. But the 49ers game last week was such a disaster. I mean, the defense was abysmal and the offense couldn't get anything going. And they had 4 yards in the first half and had give up over 300 yards in the first half. It was a crazy split of just how bad they started that game and really couldn't finish it very well either. Everything fell off in a way that you're like, did the whole thing just break, or was it kind of a one-game blip here? So I don't come into this game with any confidence that, oh, yes, they'll get demolished by a barely holding on 49ers team, but then they'll come to Minnesota and play a really good Vikings team tough again all of a sudden. It feels like those games 3 weeks ago were just kind of a mirage here, and that the fact that they were able to hold down Justin Jefferson to what he was not something that feels sustainable. And it was just more like, hey, man, the Bears found a way to make some stuff work in that game, but you can't count on that happening every single week. And that's what brings me this matchup here. I look at what the Bears have done the last couple of weeks. I try and find some room for the Bears to have some hope here. And I'm like, okay, the Vikings, they gave up quite a few rushing yards last week to the Falcons and Bijan Robinson. And the week before, Kyler Murray and James Conner were getting some stuff going on the ground. We saw at the end of the Bears Vikings game that Caleb Williams got a little bit of a scramble action going there. They couldn't get DeAndre Swift going, but is there a common theme here that they've been struggling with in the last couple of weeks on that side of the ball after they had been so good in the run defense prior to that?
Yeah. So they played two very physical teams in Arizona, and the Falcons, I don't think, are a physical team. They're a really good outside zone team though. So they're a good running team, but not necessarily because of physicality. It's more of a speed thing for them. But the thing is right now, Andrew Van Ginkel's banged up and Harrison Phillips is banged up. And both of those guys had uncharacteristically bad games against the Falcons. They also have made a change on the defensive line. They swapped Jerry Tillery, who has been playing as kind of that base defensive lineman that comes out in nickel downs. And he's been playing fine. This is a rotational guy, but they switched him out for Jalen Redmond, who was like a surprise 53-man roster make, but he's been killing it in practice, I guess. They gave him more snaps, and he kind of showed out. So we got this ooh, who's this 61 dude? So he actually showed out a little bit, but the stars are a little banged up, maybe struggling a bit. And they practiced physical this week. because they had the extra day. So on Wednesday, they had a full padded practice, which I think is a bit unusual because, hey, you got that extra day of rest, let's hit it hard. So I wonder if the fatigue is going to set in a little bit. But the key to the problems, I think, kind of came up front there. They're also missing Ivan Pace. He got hurt in that Soldier game. He's on IR. They're like hoping he's back for the playoffs. So they're not expecting him back for a bit yet. And so they have Jamin Davis, the old first round pick that was on the Packers practice squad before, is maybe taking some of those snaps, or Kamu Grugier-Hill, or they've had Josh Metellus just play the job. And so they just are in dime. So it's a smaller defense all of a sudden. And, replacing that linebacker has been a bit of a bugaboo all year. So I think there are worlds here. If you can hit the inside, if Harrison Phillips is still not himself, double team him, wash him out, get yards right up those A gaps, like that could absolutely be there. Or these guys get healthy and it was actually just kind of a one game fluke. The Cardinals couldn't run the ball the way they wanted to. They got some out of Kyler Murray, but that scrambling is different. And that's more of a Caleb question, right? But in terms of just the running, I don't know. If you can widen out Andrew Van Ginkel because he's not himself right now, then you can get that B gap. DeAndre Swift gets through it. I think some of the most explosive Bears plays of the whole season came on that kind of play.
One of the other things we talked about heading into the last matchup between these two teams was how, pretty much every week you felt like Sam Darnold was going to give you an opportunity or two to get an interception. Like the Vikings would give you one kind of extra opportunity as a turnover. In the first game, the Bears got an Aaron Jones fumble at the goal line, but otherwise no picks on Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
He hasn't thrown an interception in 4 weeks now. Is he taking care of the ball better, or is he just having better turnover luck?
No, he's taking care of it better. I would have to look at like a turnover worthy play metric or something, but I would guess that is down too. He's not making safer throws necessarily. He's just really dialed into exactly where the line is. Because he's threading some really tight windows, but the accuracy is there. Sam Darnold is like on one right now. It's really easy to be super high on him coming off a 5 touchdown game. Like it's very peak right now. But I like for a couple of weeks, I was like, okay, he's due for a pick. He's due for a pick. He's due for a pick. He might still be, but after 4 weeks of no interceptions, and I'm struggling to even think of a time where it like should have been intercepted. Like maybe the DPI in the Bears game that like went all the way down the field. Like that maybe should have been intercepted, but also if Justin Jefferson doesn't get held up, does that turn into a contested situation? And that's maybe what like, who knows, right? Like that might be the closest one. He's been very much right on exactly in that range of aggression versus safety. That's like that perfect little Goldilocks zone. And that's why these last 3-4 games, Darnold has been absolutely humming. He just got NFC Player of the Week. And it's like no caveats, good football.
It seems like the last couple of weeks he's been sacked a bit more and the pressure's been on him. Is that him holding onto the ball too long? Is that offensive line issues or some combination of both or more?
You're always going to get it. Yeah, you're always going to get, I would guess 4 sacks again. So the Vikings are not going to back off of this. This is just Kevin O'Connell's insane. Your quarterback's getting sacked like crazy and we're doing more 7-step drops. Like it's just the way it's going to be. He's just going to keep hitting it and say the sacks are worth it. So he's holding the ball a lot, but like he gets to the top of his drop at 2.5 seconds. Because of all the extra crap that's going on, the play action and then turn around and then, and reset his feet, go across a whole progression. A lot of the progressions are peer. So you can get 1, 2, 3 into a progression before you even find somebody open. That takes forever. And these routes are 20 yards. So that like everything just takes forever to happen. It's not necessarily Sam's fault always. Some of them are. But also they've had some communication issues up front. I think there's a continuity, right? So Dalton Reisner, I think, had his first start against you guys, or maybe it was the game before. No, it was the game before. It was against the Titans. But he's still starting, and there's communication there. He also is just susceptible to a bull rush. So if like Gervon Dexter is a good bull rush, you can walk that guy back. You can walk Bradbury back too. You just got to find him one-on-one. And then Cam Robinson on the other side, obviously he's only been here a month. He's playing very good football. We're really happy with Cam Robinson, but between him and Blake Brandel, they've had communication errors. And then a couple of times, a lot of these blitzes, that the Arizona and the Falcons both sent a ton of blitzes. And a lot of them worked were picked up exactly the way the Vikings would want. They got hat on a hat. And then it's just that Aaron Jones or Cam Akers would lose to a linebacker. So the running back pass pro has been a sort of isolated weak point that they've been able to get. And it's funny because on the other side, the Vikings have been able to do the same thing to both of those teams and find, both of those and find them. And I think they got at least one on the Bears doing that too, or at least a good pressure.
Yeah.
So finding running back pass pro has been a bit of a theme on both sides of the ball. Like find that matchup that you like. And that's something that actually Jamin Davis got a sack last week on the running back, is like kind of the only time he showed up, but he's a good blitzer. That was kind of the whole point of him, is that he's a blitzer. So, but yeah, it's find the running backs and isolate it, walk back the guard and isolate him, or hope for a miscommunication between one of two guys that have only been in the starting lineup for a month. It's been changing a little bit.
Well, see, we're kind of starting to lay the groundwork a little bit here for like, okay, here's some things
we are
do to pull off a potential kind of upset in this game. And we can hammer that in a little bit more quickly. We put these pieces together coming up here.
Absolutely. This episode of the Locked On crossover between Locked On Vikings and Locked On Bears is brought to you by Bilt Rewards. Thanks to Bilt, you can now earn points on rent payments, just like you would with a credit card. Paying rent comes with serious perks, and it's completely free to join. You can earn valuable Bilt points on your rent and everyday spending at no extra cost. You can redeem points for flights or hotel stays or even future rent payments. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels in their program, so the possibilities are endless, and there are unique experiences exclusive to Bilt members. So if you're sick of just watching that rent money go down the drain, you want something back for it, check out Bilt Rewards. You can start earning points on the rent you're gonna pay anyways by going to joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl. And make sure to use our link so they know we sent you. Don't wait. Start earning rewards today. Well, let's just not beat around the bush. So the Vikings are favored by 7. There are a whole bunch of ways, at FanDuel, at least last I checked the line. So there are a whole bunch of ways for that to manifest itself, right? Justin Jefferson could go off, or they could overcommit to him again, and everybody else could go off, or they could have a bunch of turnovers off of Caleb Williams, or get a bunch of sacks on Caleb Williams. So many of those ways you could list a lot of those sort of normal outcomes. But what is the one where the Bears do this? Like what is, I guess, the best of the Bears? What is their best possible product, if they put it all together, look like?
Yeah, I think it's about coming out and getting Caleb Williams confident and into a rhythm quickly and early, and being able to give him answers for the Vikings blitz, to be able to let him be decisive. And because against the 49ers, the thing that stood out, like, yes, we've seen him hold the ball too long at times this season or whatever, and we've seen him maybe not pull the trigger on some throws, but like he felt even tentative to just like flee the pocket. Like he would like wait that extra half a second before he'd start to scramble, and wouldn't necessarily like scramble in a hurry, and he'd get chased down and sacked before he would, where in the past he would escape and make a miraculous Houdini type of effort. So like just to sort of like get him back playing with some of that confidence and some of that energy that can get this offense going. Like the Vikings were, I think, the only team the Bears scored a touchdown on in the first quarter all season, came up to a 7-0 lead there to start. And like, that's what the Bears need to get going. So it's not 24-0 at halftime like it was against the 49ers, and they have to pull some miraculous comeback at the end. And then, the defense is going to give up yards. They're going to get gashed a lot, but it's about those turnovers, right? If they can get one or even two off of Sam Darnold, maybe one off of a ball carrier, like give them extra possessions that don't end in points for the Vikings. And like, that's how you sort of shoot out your way to a, 30-27 overtime type of final score.
30-20. That would be a really funny way for that to go down. I see. I guess we haven't really talked about how Caleb Williams is doing, and the last few games with Thomas Brown, he's been better. But I just can't get out of my head. A lot of people talked about that Vikings game as this kind of like breakout party for Caleb Williams with a couple of the plays that he made, but I can't get that last sack out of my head. That nothing is like how does he not roll that thing out? He had the escape lane, throw away, live to fight another down. He's that kind of hero ball gene just like totally set in the wrong moment, and he takes this hideous sack. Has he been still doing that the last couple of weeks? Is that still there?
It felt better against the Detroit Lions and then got back. So last two games in Lions and 49ers since then. It was better the immediate week after, and then the 49ers was definitely a step back in that regard, where he isn't again, like decisiveness feels like the word here. Like he's just not, he's tentative with like everything that he did. He's tentative to pull the trigger, tentative to run, and like you feel like that's not who we've seen Caleb Williams generally be, just from like an energy and a swagger type of how he carries himself dating back to college and throughout the rest of the season. So it's hard to know then which version of that we're going to get this week. Is it maybe still a little bit flat, or are they going to bring that energy back up for the Minnesota Vikings and the divisional game? But it's on the road where the Bears have been struggling quite a bit under Matt Eberflus, now extended into the Thomas Brown regime. So it's definitely a part of the process here, and it's just a matter of how much of that we're going to get.
There's a nugget I'll give you from something that I wrote last week. I charted all of the Vikings fronts manually, and how often in particular they did cover zero was really interesting. They're not cover zero the coverage, but cover zero the pre-snap alignment, with everybody lined up on the line of scrimmage and one guy playing 8 to 10 yards off every receiver. And they did it the most. I didn't do this last week against the Falcons. That one actually might beat it, but at least up until then, the most of all season against Chicago, which to me is a sign of disrespecting a rookie. That's a little bit, you're new, you think a lot, let's make you think fast and hope mistakes happen. And I would be very surprised if Brian Flores doesn't do that again. So I think the answer is the same as it was when I asked you last week. But Caleb Williams sees 7 guys on the line of scrimmage and everybody in off coverage. What is his move? Does he change the play into a perimeter screen? Does he just say, I'm going to throw it to my hot? Does he say, I'm going to run around like a madman? What is going through his head before the snap when he sees that kind of look?
Yeah, I think they've done a better job under Thomas Brown of at least giving him different options there. So we have seen sometimes, he'll change the play to a boundary screen, and they've been liking getting the ball into DJ Moore's hand in that type of situations. We've seen other plays where he'll adjust the protection and say, let's pick it up and go. I mean, it kind of depends on what they're giving him on the front end and what the structure of the formation of the play is going to be. They're not always in a great position to check into a screen pass, depending on alignment where they are in the field. And they're not always in a great position to bring in the right extra blockers to pick up the blitz if you have 4 wide receivers in the field, right? So it's not that there's like one go-to option there, but I think he's definitely someone who isn't afraid to try and take it on and beat it with his arm, and then but also then trust himself that, hey, if that first look's not there, I can outrun and outmaneuver these guys. And well, he's got the confidence to believe that. He doesn't always execute it that way in practice, when he thinks he can beat the guy and then ends up getting tripped up as he escapes the pocket and takes a sack. But the idea was there, he just couldn't quite finish it.
I think this is going to be a really interesting game. I mean, the second divisional game is always fascinating, especially if the first one was close, because that means both teams did some things well and some things poorly, and then it's a matter of who has it in them to make those adjustments. And is it the team that changed their staff and now maybe has guys with different perspectives very willing to adjust stuff, or do they break everything down that was working and then and that's, I don't know. It's really interesting to me, especially on the offensive side, where the structure has changed so much. And I feel more fascinated with like what's going on in Chicago, even than sometimes what's going on with the Vikings. That, oh, well, we understand this now. Okay, Sam Darnold's doing his thing. They're going to chase shot plays all day long. They're going to go for deep balls all day long. They're going to maybe take some sacks or maybe throw some picks doing it. And it's going to be worth it because they get a 50-yard touchdown every quarter. Like, okay, I get it. But Chris Beatty, what's he going to do? Like, I'm so fascinated.
I will say, like, as far as chasing the shot plays go, like, especially with Jaquan Brisker out for the year, and right now they're on their third string safety, Jonathan Owens, the husband of Simone Biles, or boyfriend. I don't remember what their relationship is now.
Fiance, husband.
Like last week against the 49ers, they played single deep on like almost every snap. They ran like 2 or 3 or 4 snaps of cover 4, and everything else was single deep the rest of the way. So they clearly weren't going to get back and keep the shot. But maybe that was an approach for Brock Purdy and an injured 49ers team. But I'm just like, when I think about this matchup, I think Kevin Connell is a better offensive coach than Eric Washington is a defensive coach head to head. And Brian Flores is a better defensive coach than Thomas Brown is an offensive coach head to head. The Vikings clearly have the coaching matchup. And so it feels to me like the Bears figured some things out in the first game, but I would put my money on the smarter coaching staff making the proper adjustments to beat out the maybe lesser coaching staff in the competition.
All right, I have a take. I don't know how Bears fans are going to feel about it. I think the key to the upset, to answer the question we kind of opened with here, is that Caleb Williams has to go Justin Fields on it. Late 2023 Justin Fields on it. Not talking rushing, but talking just take matters into his own hands and just play the style of football he plays. And that has to, and like the scramble drills have to work. Like he just has to go full on USC and not rely on anyone else's talent, which is not what you want your rookie to have to do. But I remember that's why Chicago kind of went on that win streak late last year, is because Justin Fields just started doing the very unhealthy thing of just running all the time. And it's like, well, yeah, but it did like put up 30.
Yeah. It's tough when like
that's where I feel it's at.
I agree with you, because like you even look back to last week against the 49ers and there's still spacing issues and in terms of route concept stuff, where it's like you can't,
when timing is not there. It's like a rookie's not going to have that dialed in, but also like Keenan Allen's not as fast as you wish he was, you know?
Yeah. So when you can't count on the built-in structure of the play, then it takes you creating magic by yourself. And that feels like what it would have to take for Caleb Williams in this game. And as you said, like, you don't want to put him in that position. He was able to do some of that against the Vikings the first time, so maybe he can do it again. But I just kind of get the feeling like they kind of gassed out on a lot of what was in the tank there for Caleb, and that the rest of the year is going to fizzle out a little bit more.
I'm going to see preseason Bears defenses and offenses.
That's what it felt like last week.
Well, so here's the deal. Bears fans, if you're interested in learning a little bit more about how the Falcons ran the ball so well on the Vikings, listen to yesterday's Locked On Vikings. I had Pete Bursich on, who played for the Vikings. He does color now for the Vikings on the radio. He had really interesting insights on how all that stuff worked. And of course, I encourage Vikings fans, go listen to what Lauren's talking about on Locked On Bears if you want the scoop on get caught up on everything going on there. Lauren is all over it all the time. Go-to guy for everything going on for the Bears. Lauren, please enjoy at least your Red Zone Sunday.
I will try my best, but it's going to be a late Monday night, and I don't know if we'll get to bed late and feel like, oh wow, that was worth it, or if it was just like, well, all right, another merciful week comes to an end.
Yeah, I hate primetime games, but fully for selfish reasons. I don't want to be up. I won't go to bed. So let's go to bed. All right. Thanks so much for watching this Locked On crossover. See you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.